Okay, good morning, guys. So I'm going to go through the second passage for the writing that we're going to be doing. Remember, you have 3 to pick from. My last video talked about Moon Tiger and the excerpt from there. This one is an excerpt from Thomas Hardy's The Mayor of Casterbridge. It's an 1886 text. And in this text, Michael Henchard and his daughter Elizabeth Jane have been reunited after years of being apart. For some reason, they were separated. We don't really know what this separation is or why. But during this separation, Henchard used to be a poor seasonal farm worker. Somehow he has risen to be the wealthy mayor of a small country town. So we don't really know anything about his rise to fame. We don't really know anything about the separation between him and his daughter. We don't know anything at all about the mother and how that process was involved. The only thing we do know is that Elizabeth has supported herself by waiting on tables at a tavern. So she's been a waitress during this time. Again, we have no mention of the mother, no mention of the relationship. We have no mention of how he got from being a seasonal farm worker to a wealthy mayor of a small town. So we don't really know where this setting takes place. I can take a couple of guesses, but I don't really know exactly what's taken place. Somewhere where there are seasonal farm workers, and they have mayors. There's also taverns there. So let's see what we can figure out here. We're going to be reading the passage carefully, paying particular attention to tone, word choice, and selection of detail. Compose a well-written essay in which you analyze Hardy's portrayal of the complex relationship between the two characters. So we're going to be using literary devices to figure out this relationship between the characters, okay? And so they ask you to pay attention to tone. So the tone is like the mood of the piece. Word choice. What words does the author particularly pick out, and what details does the author include in this passage? Or in this excerpt, okay? So those are 3 things that you could pay attention to. Remember, as we read, it's always fair game to look at, compare, contrast, imagery, symbolism, word choice. All of those things are still fair game. Those 5 things that I have you read things for every single time, okay? So let's go ahead and give this a read and see what we can figure out. Of all the enigmas, which ever confronted a girl, there can have been seldom one like that which followed Henchard's announcement of himself to Elizabeth as her father. He had done it in an ardor and an agitation which had half carried the point of affection with her. Yet, behold, from the next morning onward, his manner was constrained as she had never seen it before. So it kind of sounds like they kind of knew each other a little bit somehow before all of this went down, before he announced that he was the father. It wasn't super affectionate, but more than he had been before. But the next morning, his manner was constrained as she had never seen it before. So he changes. Telling her that he is her father has somehow changed their relationship. The coldness, so it goes from somewhat a little bit of affection to constrained, no affection at all. The coldness soon broke out into open chiding. So he was being cold, and then open chiding is kind of like, not a teasing, but a chastising, like being just mean and rude and derogatory. One grievous failing of Elizabeth was her occasional pretty and picturesque use of dialect words, those terrible marks of the beast to the truly genteel. So guys, she speaks in dialect. She doesn't have proper English. And that is not becoming of someone who's wealthy and who is a mayor, okay? Terrible marks of the beast to the truly genteel. He doesn't want anybody to know that, he just wants to be known as the mayor. He doesn't want to be known as someone who's uneducated or had been a migrant farmer or something like that. He is, so the fact that she doesn't speak properly is a point of contention between the two. It was dinner time. They never met except at meals. And she happened to say, so they only ever see each other at dinner time. And she happened to say when he was rising from the table, wishing to show him something, "If you'll bide where you be a minute, father, I'll get it." He said, "Bide where you be," he echoed sharply. "Good God, are you only fit to carry wash to a pig trough? that ye use such words as those? Okay. She reddened with shame and sadness. So he's just being outright mean here. It's just him and her. There's no reason for him to be that upset for her inappropriately using this phrase that she's used. And basically he calls her out saying, hey, are you only fit to carry wash to a pig trough? Okay, so you're, kind of down at the bottom. You're not fit for anything else. She reddened with shame and sadness. I meant, stay where you are, father, she said in a low, humble voice. I ought to have been more careful. So a humble voice is kind of like, oh, Dad, I know you're right. I'm sorry. I ought to have been more careful. He made no reply and went out of the room. So he didn't even stick around so she could show him whatever it was she wanted to show him. The sharp reprimand was not lost upon her, and in time it came to pass that for Fay she said succeed, that she no longer spoke of Dumbledores, but of humblebees, no longer said of young men and women that they walked together, but they were engaged, that she grew to talk of Greggles as wild hyacinths, and when she had not slept, she did not quaintly tell the servants the next morning that she had been hag-rid, that she suffered from indigestion. So she's learning how to talk, how to speak, and how to be more ladylike and proper. Okay? These improvements, however, so because he chastises her, she's changing who she is and how she talks and what she does. Okay? These improvements, however, are somewhat in advance of the story. Henchard, being uncultivated himself, was the bitterest critic the fair girl could possibly have had of her own lapses, really slight now, for she read omnivorously. Okay, so she's reading absolutely omnivorously, as an omnivore eats both plants and meat. Okay, so she's reading everything. She's reading so she can learn and become more cultivated. But he also is uncultivated. So the author chooses to reveal that to us. And he's the most bitter critic she could have only ever had. And it's probably because he also has these, he probably feels self-conscious about his own deficiencies that he has as a person. He wasn't educated, wasn't raised as a wealthy person. So he's unaware of some of the things. So he delights in bringing upon her faults or showing out her faults. A gratuitous ordeal was in store for her in the matter of handwriting. She was passing the dining room door one evening, and she had on occasion to go in for something. It was not till she opened the door that she knew the mayor was in there, company of a man, which he transacted business. Here, Elizabeth Jane, he said, looking round at her, just write down what I tell you. A few words of an agreement for me and this gentleman to sign. I am a poor tool with a pen. Be jound, and so be I, said the gentleman. So both of the men admit they have bad handwriting. Okay? She brought forth blotting book, paper, and ink, and sat down. Now then, an agreement entered into the 16th day of October. Write that first. So he's having Elizabeth, because it's assumed that women know how to write. That should be one of their finer attributes, is they have good handwriting. Okay? She started the pen and an elephantine march across the street. So how does an elephant march across the street? Is it pretty and dainty and nicely done? No. An elephant marching across the street is going to be loud and commanding, and it's going to be not neat at all. It was a splendid, round, bold hand of her own conception, so she's taught herself to write. A style that would have stamped a woman as Minerva's own in more recent days. But other ideas reigned then. So it would be okay now, but not then. Henchard's creed was that proper young girls wrote ladies' hand. Nay, he believed that bristling characters were as innate and inseparable a part of refined womanhood as sex itself. Hence when, instead of scribbling like the Princess Ida, in such a hand as when a field of corn bows all its ears before the roaring east. Okay, so he just cannot believe that she has just such bad handwriting. Okay, Elizabeth Jane produced a line of chain shot and sandbags. Chain shot is like not consistent. Sandbags, have you ever tried to stack sandbags nice and neat and perfectly? It just doesn't happen. They reddened in angry shame for her. He reddened in angry shame for her, and preemptively saying, never mind, I'll finish it. Dismissed her there and then, which would have been embarrassing in front of this gentleman. Her considerate disposition became a pitfall to her now. She was, it must be admitted, sometimes provokingly and unnecessarily willing to saddle herself with manual labor. So she would rather be manually labor, and then because she was just used to doing things for herself, she would go to the kitchen instead of ringing, not to make Phoebe come up twice. She went down on her knees, shovel in hand, when the cat overturned the coal scuttle. Moreover, she would persistently thank the parlor maid for everything, till one day, as soon as the girl was gone from the room, Henchard broke out with, "Good God, why doesn't leave off thanking that girl as if she were a goddess born? Don't I pay her £12 a year to do things for thee?" So she gets so he's upset that she keeps thanking the girl. And why are you treating her like a goddess? I pay her to do this. Elizabeth shrank so visibly at the exclamation that he became sorry a few minutes after and said he did not mean to be rough. So she withdrew in that moment, and it was so bad, the chastising was so bad that he even had to apologize, which is very much out of his character. Okay? These domestic exhibitions were the small protruding needle rocks which suggested rather than revealed what was underneath. But his passion had less terror for her than his coldness. The increasing frequency of the latter mood told her that the sad news he disliked her with a growing dislike. So it just keeps getting worse. He just keeps giving her the cold shoulder. And the fact that he doesn't get angry with her anymore, it suggests that he's disliking her even more. The more interesting that her appearance and manners became under the softening influences which she could now command, and her wisdom did command, the more she seemed to estrange him. So the better that she gets at being the high society, having the proper manners, having the better handwriting, having the proper language and speaking and acting more like a young lady should, the more he seems to not like her, and the colder he is, and the more he is distanced from her. So as you're going to write this essay, the tone is like an ominous tone. You know, it's not going to get any better for this girl. She probably would have enjoyed her previous life more than what she did when she met her father. So pay attention to word choice. The fact that what words does the author use to describe both of them? Okay, and the selection of detail. So, you could easily pull out some imagery here. You could easily pull out, I like compare and contrast here. You could compare the two characters. They're both uneducated. They both are not easily, hanging out in this society in which they find themselves now. And then you can contrast them. They have a lot of comparisons. They have a lot of contrast. Any of those literary terms are fair game, guys. So think about those things. You're going to want to relate things to tone, word choice, selection of detail. But be thinking about those paragraphs. And remember, the ultimate thing that you're doing here is how does the author show the relationship between these two characters, this complex relationship between father and daughter who had been separated for lots and lots of time and now are suddenly together. How does the author do that? Okay. If you have questions, reach out to me, guys. Remember, you're going to be writing 2 essays by the end of next week. So get started on the first one and get it sent to me. Thanks, guys.